So, hi everyone that's joined. Welcome to Jossie Talks, our webinar number 2. I'm Savannah Joss. I'm the founder of Joss Search, for those of you who don't know us. We're a small recruitment company in London and New York, and we're super passionate about championing hidden heroes, support teams, business support teams across the alternative investment sector. We launched these weekly events last week, and to help everyone through these uncertain times, we've moved our sort of events to weekly and being on a webinar. And we just want to do our bit really to help our hidden heroes be better equipped to cope. Last week, we looked at how the EA role had changed overnight to becoming a virtual one. And this week, we're looking at mental health and well-being. And it's something that we're quite passionate about at Joss Search, and we've been championing for a long time. But I think it's important all the time, but even more important at the moment, given that we're spending about 98% of our time at home, indoors, in front of screens. Some of us are having to juggle work and family and just so many more jobs than we're used to doing, all in a confined space. I saw a really funny meme going around about getting annoyed at your husband blinking too loudly, which really made me chuckle and sort of I thought was quite poignant for what we're all going through. So it is taking its toll, and we sort of want to do our bit to help everyone. My own personal challenge of having 2 young kids under 4, running this business, and you know, just trying to cope is tough. And I'm really hoping to learn from Tayyaba how to be less reliant on wine personally. We're really fortunate to have her speaking. She's, for those of you that don't know and haven't had a chance to sort of look over before, she's a international health and wellness expert who coaches CEOs and companies globally about how to manage their well-being. And so we've had several conversations with her in the lead up to this, and each time we've been incredibly inspired. So I really hope that you will be too, and we'll be able to take some simple tools to start using over the next few weeks and hopefully into the foreseeable. Tayyaba's going to go through her main topics and tips, and after each sort of area, it's fair to say, we'll open up the floor to Q&A, and we'll be using the questions after each topic. So please be interactive. Just so you know, in the bottom of your screen there's a Q&A button, and if you tick in just underneath where you can type your question, if you tick the button that says anonymous, the question will come up anonymously, so no one else will be able to see who's asked questions. We realise that some of these questions will probably be sensitive and personal, so we really encourage you to ask them. It's a great opportunity to ask something that's bothering you, and we'll try and get through as many as we can after each part, but also allow enough time at the end for Q&A. So yeah, without further ado, Tayyaba, I'm going to hand over to you. So thanks very much for joining us, and thanks everyone for being here.
Thanks, Savannah. It's really wonderful to be here and to be able to reach out to as many people as possible. I'm in a bit of a strange situation in that Gurney, who's working with us, is controlling my slides. So Gurney, we need to go to, I think it's slide 3. And I'll just have to keep telling her to click as we move on. So the next slide, please. Yeah. So hi, everybody. Yes, we're going to talk about working from home. This is a webinar called Strive, Thrive and Grow, and I'll be sharing it 3 times this week. It's a very strange situation, as you mentioned, Savannah. You know, we're in lockdown, all these words: isolation, outbreak, deaths, cases, PPE, pictures of strange alien-looking viruses, and working from home. We've been bombarded with these words over and over, and we're still really none the wiser of how to create this kind of working from home environment. So what I really want to talk about today is these 5 things, and what does working from home really mean to you, good and bad. So we're going to look at practical tips and strategies, consistency versus uncertainty, communication in real life, and this is, you know, a big one for many, managing family life and distractions, and then going more conventionally to how to stay healthy and well through micro changes which is something that I've worked with for the last 4 years very successfully, and then sort of looking at your mental health and how we can create some personal norms. So yeah, after each section, please, you know, type in any questions so I can try and help you as we go along, rather than having a whole load of questions at the end. And don't worry about writing notes and stuff. The guys here at Joss are going to send out some of the main points, but also If you want to, you can come into my sort of private app community, which is free, and I will have all the information that I'm going to share with you today. So it's a lot of information. Try not to worry about writing notes and stuff. Okay, so next slide, please. We're going to start with practical tips and strategies. So working from home as a choice is, something that sounds really great, but suddenly when it's been pushed onto you like this, you find yourself a little bit out of control. All of your roles are in play. You're suddenly a wife or a husband, mother, father, boyfriend, girlfriend, cook, cleaner, and by the looks of things, an employee. So it's a really, terrible concoction of things that can cause a lot of stress and high anxiety. COVID-19 has given rise to lockdown. And what does this really mean? So it means we are working, living, eating, sleeping, relaxing, or at least trying to, and entertaining in the same space. Throw into that family, housemates, spouses, pets, extra cleaning, extra washing, extra cooking with limited ingredients, and for some of us with children, homeschooling. Add to that a huge chunk of global uncertainty and no escape, well, only once a day. And then there's also this growing social pressure to find the silver lining in all of this. Generally, when you're at home more, we tend to eat more and we're moving less. And that can make you feel, a little bit anxious and sometimes even a bit low. No wonder then, the idea of then having to work in amongst all of that is quite challenging. But one of the things I think we do need to remember, having reeled out all of those things, that this is not your normal working from home scenario. I mean, this is really like working from home on steroids. It's the most unbelievable, crazy kind of mix of events and situation. So my first real point is, forgive yourself, be kind to yourself, allow yourself to be okay with feeling that things are difficult, things are a little bit hard, because they actually are. We are, in the end, only human. And so if you are a little bit short-tempered or you're grabbing an extra chunk of chocolate or 2 or 3, be kind to yourself. Forgive yourself for making mistakes. We're only just, working from home. This may be up to 4 weeks for some people. For some, it's just 1 or 2. This is work in progress. And, in all honesty, Rome was not built in a month. So definitely be kind to yourself and forgive yourself, because it is a very, very new and unique situation. My second point is something that we kind of quite often forget to do, and this is really just to review and reflect. Even if you've only been a week at home, have a look at your week and look at what actually has worked, what's been good, and conversely, we really need to look at what hasn't worked. What has been good about this week? It'd be really interesting to even hear about that from you guys and perhaps even share it. I don't know, I don't want to clog up the questions, but to be able to sort of share those with other people as well. Maybe you could help someone else with what's worked for you. But either way, I think it's a really great exercise at the end of this to sit down for a couple of minutes and write down, firstly, what worked, and secondly, what didn't work. This will allow you to get what didn't work out of your head and onto a piece of paper. But then you really need to ask yourself, is there anything I can do to sort of work through these challenges? And if yes, spend a bit of time trying to work it out or solve it. And if not, then really you just need to let go of it and concentrate on the things that you can control. Please don't be shy to communicate to your employer. It's really important that you discuss the limitations of your environment and your situation, and accept the support that you're getting. I mean, there's quite a lot of support out there, which is great. And things like this really, really help. And don't forget to ask for help when you need it. You're not supposed to come up with all of the answers to all of the problems by yourself. It's okay to ask for help and really get some stuff sorted, because it is such a strange situation that we're in. The third thing I want to talk about is having a little bit of a plan. What I mean by that is it's really, really tempting. There's a big temptation to sort of regain control and have everybody on a timetable when everything feels so out of control and everyone's doing their own thing and has got their own plan. Creating a minute-by-minute timetable is not really going to help. This is not really the time to make lots of black and white rules. although you may feel a bit out of control, you know, your way of getting through this jungle is not to make it very black and white. You need to be more malleable with your boundaries. So rethink your timetable daily. You know, sit down and talk to your family, work with your partner or your household, and just try and work things out. And if things aren't working, rethink again. But think of this as a kind of a daily process. We need to strive for sort of progress and not perfection. I think if you can get into the habit of thinking daily, this will help you to A, find your groove, and B, eventually get your household into a rhythm as well, which hopefully it will do soon. Another big thing, and quite often HR are very good at communicating about this, is your environment. So, you know, what do you really need? Are you sitting comfortably? Have you got your computer at the right height? Have you got headphones? Can you use headphones? Is that a useful thing? Have you got a good Wi-Fi signal? If you don't have the luxury of a separate space, a separate desk, and you're using your kitchen table, what can you do to make it feel a bit more like work? You know, move your fruit bowl out of the way and put it back at the end of the day so that you start to get into the zone of this being work. It's really important that you're sitting comfortably and, you know, get a cushion. Ask yourself, do you need noise? Do you need quiet? What do you need? Environment, both, you know, aesthetically and practically, is really important. And making sure you're at the right height and making sure that your back's supported, also really, really important. And, you know, there can be a few challenges around finding the right environment, and maybe you have to keep moving around or share space with somebody else. Just, again, it's about talking and working out, okay, you have it now and I'll have it later, kind of thing. Working from home is totally different than working from an office. You know, the amount of times you stand up and sit down, you couldn't count it on your hand. You just move around a lot more than you would at home. Some of the things that I'm finding with some of my clients is that they feel like they're stuck to their chair. So it's really important to take regular breaks, 25 minutes or 45 minutes. Get up and get a glass of water, get yourself a tea or a coffee, but move around. Taking breaks really optimizes concentration. So that will really help if you're struggling to get in, you know, into working and getting into the zone. And I always suggest that every time you get up to get a drink or go to the loo, if you just add in a stretch, literally put your arms over your head and then bend forward and just let your arms hang over your toes. And that way you kind of release your back, you know, how you're stacked up on top of each other. You just allow that to loosen up and unstiffen your neck as well. Obviously, if you've got any injuries and you wouldn't do that normally, don't do that. Look at standing up as well, because that can be a really great option with lots of benefits. If that's an option for you, great, you know. And can you be with your wireless headphones walking around from time to time when you're having a conversation, or, you know, even on a Zoom if it's not too distracting for the others. There are lots and lots of other tips and practical things that I can suggest to you, but I want to get through some of the other things as well. So for now, that's my lot of tips, and I just want to see, is there any questions so far, Sivan?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of questions, you know, in terms of changing your environment and taking breaks. You know, we all know that we're meant to do that, and I think in an office environment, we naturally just would. Whereas I can only speak from personal experience. I find that I'm just sort of sitting here for hours and hours and hours on end because I'm going from one Zoom to another Zoom to another Zoom. And, you know, how do you actually in practice like make yourself do it? If you're, you know, if you're anything like me or anyone else, you might just sit there and realize it's been 4 hours and you haven't moved. Like what are like really practical things that we can do?
Well, I mean, a very simple practical thing is just to put an hourly buzzer on your phone. You know, if you've got an Apple Watch or you're always being told to get up and move around. So just don't put an alarm on because that's too distracting, but a vibration thing, to stick it on every hour or every 1.5 hours to make sure you get up and move, get yourself a cup of tea or water. I mean, I always suggest people have water on the table because we want to keep hydrated. So yeah.
Okay. And I don't know if you're going to cover this, but just in terms of working longer hours, I don't know if you're getting on to that, but I don't know about anyone else, but just sort of perhaps finding that they're working a lot longer into the night and not stopping and finding it hard to differentiate between work and home? Because normally you'd
Yeah.
have the commute to separate that, whereas now you don't.
I am going to talk about it. I am going to talk about it later on, about creating a bedtime curfew, because I think it's really important, and also about swapping hats. So do you want me to do it now, or shall I go to it when we...
No, you get through to it when you want to. Cool, thanks.
Okay, all right. So okay, on to the next slide, please, Gani. I don't know if you can hear me. Yay, there we go. So the next topic, which is a bit of an unusual one to talk about when it comes to health and wellness, but it is actually really relevant for us at the moment, is consistency versus uncertainty. And so, you know, when there's a lot of things that one can't control in their lives, and, you know, for lots of people, when you have a crazy day anyway, this is a really good practice to put in place. Uncertainty, as we know, can cause anxiety. And so introducing what I call personal consistency when you can really eases this. So I want you to ask yourself, where can you easily get more consistent? Again, you know, it may not be ideal for everyone, but I think it's really important to start to look at things like getting up in the morning at the same time, having a shower, you know, at the same time, getting dressed, you know, putting on shoes. Someone told me it's a top tip: if you feel like you're not really getting into the zone of work, put some shoes on, because you would never, you know, very few people I know walk around the office in barefoot or slippers. So, what can you do more consistently in your normal day-to-day stuff? Eating together is a really good one, or eating at the same time, especially if you've got children. You know, maybe one of you with the children can be around a table at lunch. And again, don't be too idealistic that you're all going to sit around a table, because this is not always possible. Because, you know, if there's two of you working, then maybe you just have to take shifts and work with your timetables. I've got my sort of top 3 suggestions of where it might be a good idea to consider consistency. And one of them is this idea of a morning routine. And, you know, it's a kind of a very overused phrase. We hear it all the time, but it really has been associated with huge success. A lot of the CEOs that I work with all have a morning routine, and it really works for them. It's a little bit of self-care in the morning. So think about creating a morning routine. It doesn't have to be hours long. Could be 10 or 15 minutes. Maybe you divide it up with 5 minutes conscious breathing, or doing, you know, meditation if you've got Headspace or Calm or something like that. You know, try that. But if meditation is not for you, you could do journaling, and then add in a bit of movement, 5 minutes of yoga or 7-minute workout. I mean, there's plenty out there. I've got loads more suggestions on my app of ones that I really like. And then finally, just add in a big glass of water to get hydrated, which is such a great way to start the day. Adding lemon is going to alkalize your stomach as well. Dehydration can really lead to problems with reasoning, thinking, and making decisions. So getting hydrated first thing in the morning, rather than grabbing a tea or coffee, grabbing a glass of water. And imagine if you've just done that, you can start your day feeling like you've done something for you in 10 minutes or 15. So that's the first of my tips. And the second one is exactly what we were just talking about, which is introducing a bedtime curfew. When everything's upside down, exactly like you say, Savan, you're sitting at your desk, you're still working, no school tomorrow, kids are still, like, you know, on their iPads or whatever, or you get stuck into Netflix mania, where you're just going one after the other, depending on what's going on, because everyone's a bit discombobulated. So it's really important to create a bedtime curfew for everyone. But be realistic about this. Again, don't get too idealistic. If you normally go to bed at 1, don't start setting your alarm for 10 o'clock, hoping that somehow you're going to magically get into bed by 10:30. You know, just work backwards half an hour at a time. Optimum sleep is the single best contributor to good mental health and general wellness. And the best hours of sleep are between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. They're the most restorative. That's when you regenerate the most cells. And so I think 10 is quite hard for most people to get to bed by, but 11 is really good. And at least you're getting a good chunk of that really, really good quality sleep. So try and remember to, you know, set an alarm realistically, and then work backwards towards that 11 o'clock deadline. And don't forget as well to get the kids into that sort of zone as well, whatever time works for them, depending on their age. And then the final tip for me is setting a 5-minute recharge in the day. So Savan, what you were saying earlier, you know, like I just don't think about put in it, getting up or moving. I can just go meeting to meeting. Stick in your diary a 5-minute recharge at least once a day. And the reason I'm saying once a day, obviously it's good to do it more, and this is kind of one of my micro changes, if you like, is that you can then do it. You'll do it every day if it's only 5 minutes. Stick it in, and use that when the alarm goes off and you've got that 5 minutes. Use that to make lunch, stretch, exercise, call a friend, whatever it is, just to shy away from the computer and do something that's just a bit of a break. And it's really been shown that having a little break like that can increase concentration, at least for the next 2 hours. So it's worth doing it.
And would you put that in at the same time every day?
You can put it in wherever it fits in your day every day. So think about, if you've got a really, your timetable's different every day, most people's are. So just where you think, oh yeah, I'll just put a 5 minute in there, or where you feel like you can, if you can just, break up a few meetings, it would be good to stick it in the middle of those, just to increase concentration. So consider consistency in a personal way, and see how it makes you feel. I'd be curious to see how people, if they try that, and see how it really makes them feel. And again,
really good point. I think it's a really good point, because normally we have routine, don't we? And I think from a young age we're always trying to implement routine with our children, and as adults I'm assuming we need the same. So trying to recreate that for us all is obviously going to be important. We've got quite an interesting comment here from someone saying that they know someone who gets dressed up and has breakfast as usual and then steps out of the door and the end of the gate and back again to set themselves up for the daily routine, which I quite like.
Yeah, I think I'll touch on a few things like that later, because swapping hats is very important, and there's lots of little silly things that you can do to get yourself in there that really, really work. It's so easy, even without all this, to work 24/7. We have our computers in our hand the whole time. So swapping hats and finding your authentic way that works for you is really important. Is there any other questions? No. So I'll move on.
You can move on. Yeah.
So the next slide, please, Gurney. So the next thing we're going to talk about is communication in real life, family life, and really managing distractions. So one of the hardest things about lockdown is that we are 24/7, with each other in the household, and we're there together all the time. We're sleeping together, eating together, working together. And although for some people in the first week that sounded really ideal, just thinking about your comment at the beginning, Savan, for most people, what this really does is highlight those niggling mini flaws that sort of disappear in the distraction of a normal day. Exactly like you say, your blinking is really annoying me. It's that same thing. You're in your house with all of your pets, your kids, partners, spouses, flatmates, and then delivery men knocking on the door. The tendency or the temptation, especially for men, to lock themselves into a room and ignore what's going on around them is not a good idea. It's not a long-term solution. It's not going to work, especially if we are in lockdown until September. And basically, we really, really do need to communicate. I think the last session talked a lot about all the different types of comms, so I'm not going to go into the types of communications. But it's really important, if you've got a big meeting or you've got your boss is about to call you or whatever's going on, that you sit down with your adults in the household and say, look, I need the Wi-Fi, almost like a telephone line, more than you do, kind of thing, or I need it this time. Can we work around our meeting so that we can maximize the use of the oversubscribed Wi-Fi? Wi-Fi is our lifeline at the moment. And if you're in a family and you've got kids at home, and I know I have got homeschooling going on, so, and then, if your partner's working as well and you need to get online, it can cause all sorts of problems. So one of the things that you really do need to do is just sit down and talk about it. And again, review that daily. That daily review is going to give you success at managing those Wi-Fi and all of the other things that you need around working. And then also look at your options, just check in with your service provider. Is there anything you can do to boost the signal? Could you buy a booster? I bought a booster last week on Amazon still, so they are still available. Can you up your data on your phone so that you can tether to your phone when Wi-Fi is in use, or if it's too weak? It's just have a look at all of your options. And then in terms of time and managing your household, it's really important to think about how can you manage your family. Do you need to rethink your day? A lot of CEOs that I work with are part of what we call the 5 a.m. club. And is it something that you maybe need to consider, especially if you're a single parent and you're on your own trying to manage, kids? Is it that 5 a.m. wake up might give you a chance to get some work done before, the whole day starts? A lot of people that I know are waking up at 5 a.m., doing a morning routine and having relative quiet to get through the body of their emails or the body of their preparation for their day between 5:30 and 7:30 or 5:30 and 8:30. Now it's not for everyone and not everybody's a morning person, but it could be an option in this kind of very strange circumstance. Again, just keep talking to those in your household that can help you. Is sharing the childcare an option for you? Can you, if you are a husband and wife team with children, can one of you wake up in the morning? Can one of you wake up in the afternoon? Or how can you realistically split the day? I was chatting to a client the other day and I was suggesting that they could do it in chunks of 3. Their kids were over 7. So, one parent does 1 hour, the second parent does the second hour, and then you basically hand over to the electronic babysitter for the 3rd hour. And I think it's really important to be okay with a bit of extra screen time at the moment. I know that some people did a week of really, really brilliant homeschooling, and then the second week it all fell apart because life isn't like that, and it's very hard to balance everything and be great at everything. If the kids are very young, obviously, Savannah, don't have much choice of talking to your boss, but if your kids are very young, so under 3, then you must communicate this to your employer so that they know that this is your struggle. Don't just suffer in silence. Talk to your employer and let them know what the limitations, first let them know what you can do, and then go in with what the limitations of your situation is. When it comes to couples or partners, it's the same rules apply. It's very easy to get irritated with the sound of your eyes blinking, as we said earlier, or people's talking too loud, and also getting competitive about, look, my job is really important. I need to do, be on the phone. I need these things. I need quiet. Plan your day, work out who needs what when, see if anyone can move a meeting, communicate about your schedule. You don't need to bump heads with your partner when you're both working at home. If you find, I keep saying him, if you find your partner distracting, then, try and separate your workspaces, even if one of you has to go in the bedroom, and take it in turns in working on a desk or a table. Take breaks together. Remember, this is somebody you love or somebody you want to be with. So take breaks together, take breaks with your housemates, your household. If you can, check in with each other, have coffees, use those as well, those positives to your advantage. And then don't forget you're at home. It's great, harness that environment. You can therefore hug your children more often, stroke your pet, have them on your lap, give more attention to the people that you haven't been able to give attention to because you're not there, you're normally working. Grab your favorite mug so that, you feel like you are at home, or, have a blanket over your knees. I don't know, whatever it is that makes you feel comfortable. When you're feeling overwhelmed, remember, those things are literally right at your fingertips. So, Savan, any comments or questions?
There's a few general questions which I'll probably defer to the end. Okay. But in terms of for that particular section, no. The only other thing I would sort of have you got any other tips about how if you are working from home with children, how you might be able to manage and actually get some work done during the day? We've heard, I've heard some companies have buddying systems set up for people in the business that are parents, so covering each other's workloads and calls when the other one is like having blocked out childcare in your day. But have you come across any others that could?
No, I think that the thing that I've suggested to people who are really struggling to get the work done is to get up early. So that means going to bed early. So which is a big ask because you're turning your day upside down. But as your kids are going to bed early anyway, hopefully, you can then sort of try and go to sleep with them and try and alter your day. But the other thing is just to just not be too worried about working in little chunks. So doing 20-minute chunks, like we often get lost in the fact that we have to sit and do stuff for ages, but just keep, break stuff down, just do a little bit, do one email. Okay, if you get interrupted, then when you have a chance again, do another email. Electronic babysitters, great. Getting online play dates is a really good thing. Kids, have this, if there's someone else in the room to talk to, then you get a bit of respite and you just plug in and crack on with the work that you need to do. So it's about really not, looking for those big long chunks, but just having little chunks that you can just keep going throughout the day. And also it's really, important that that's communicated to the limitations of your situation are clear for your HR or whoever's looking after you, your boss.
Yeah, that makes total sense. We've had grandpa's games, virtual Sylvanian families has been happening, which has been great. We do have one other question, someone who without children, who said, have you got any tips for without children or partners, because it's extremely isolating and really demotivating, which makes total sense. It must be really difficult for that in that situation.
Say that again.
Any tips for people without children or partners? So if you're at home alone, like what can people do, because they're finding it extremely isolating and really quite demotivating, which makes total sense.
It is. I mean, I think the best thing that you can do is to try and talk to your friends that make you feel like you. I was going to talk about this later, but I'll just quickly go over it, because when we are in a situation like this, there's a real tendency, especially, with the lovely nurturing nature of VAs and PAs and the kind of jobs that you guys do, but is to really make sure, not just look after the people like your family or those people around you, but actually get in touch with your friends who make you feel like you, who don't require anything of you, who you can have a bit of a laugh with. Get onto these apps like House Party. Really, make an effort to do the video conferencing. Make sure you're going out every day for about 45 minutes just to increase that mental health, get that exposure to vitamin D, and just keeping yourself upbeat. And treat yourself. What is it that works for you? And again, if you are really struggling with anxiety and stress, these are the things that I literally spend most of my days helping people with. So, do drop me a line and let's see if we can, get some more details and help you out personally as well. Cool.
Thank you.
So we'll move on to wellness. So the next one. Yes, exactly. So the 4 things I'm going to talk about in sort of how to stay healthy and well are stress and anxiety levels, which we were just mentioning, sleep, movement and nutrition. But I want to talk about managing stress and anxiety. I mean, I've said it so many times, so I don't want to repeat myself, but it is hard for us at the moment. It's a very anxious time. We don't know what's going to happen next. Lockdown, virus, when are we going to be back to normal? Nobody really knows. I've heard September being mentioned, and that for me is a point of anxiety in itself. Our brains are switching from one thing to the other, and we're trying to work out, how to live in this new way. So my number one tip, my number one go-to for stress and anxiety is actually micro changes. These micro changes or micro breaks are something I trademarked last year, and I've been working with them for the last 4 years with teams and CEOs and senior executive managers, all sorts of people. What are micro changes? Micro changes are 1 to 5 minute breaks for activities, which are breaks for the body and mind. It gives the body or mind, I should say, a chance to rest. And they really have worked for people that I've worked with over the last 4 years. And I think it's really a good way to describe it is if you imagine all of the information, all of the thoughts, all of the worries, all of the anxiety are collecting in your head. But instead of being in your head, imagine they're in a giant balloon. And as the day goes on, it just fills up and gets more and more as things happen, as you react to what's going on. All of that cognitive function, all of those thoughts, all of those things are filling up in this like giant balloon, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And all you have to do to avoid burnout or getting really stressed out is just to deflate it a little bit, let a tiny bit of air out of this balloon so it's no longer turgid and about to burst, but a bit more malleable. And that's what I mean by my micro changes. For the nervous system, you're basically calming yourself down for 1 to 5 minutes. 5 minutes obviously would be better, but 1 to 2 is enough. And by doing this, I've noticed over the years that people have little moments of success, what I call wellness wins. And this allows them to carry on because it works and they feel calm, they carry on. And it's only 5 minutes at the most. So that's been a really, really useful thing for me. And that the only thing I would say, there is 2 key caveats to which micro changes are going to work for you. It's really important that they are realistic and authentic to you. So if you've never done meditation in your life, to suddenly go, all right, I'm going to do meditation for 5 minutes and let's see if that works, it's probably not going to work. You have to think about what it is for you. And the second thing is that you need to pick the right first thing. So make sure the first thing that you pick is tangible. It's something that you can really feel the difference of. And then you're more likely to do another one and add another one and add another one. Lots of people ask me, is 2 minutes really enough? Is that really enough to make a difference? And as we said earlier, there was a study done in South Korea, which basically said that it showed increased concentration for an hour after just a 2-minute break. And participants that took part in it felt better at the end of the day. I just want to give you some examples of micro changes. It doesn't have to be complicated. My favorite one is conscious breathing. And with an investment firm that I work with, I often say to them, it doesn't matter when. You don't have to close your eyes and be doing this. You can be walking to the toilet, but as long as you're breathing consciously. And what do I mean by that? I mean, taking a breath in for 3, 4, 5 method is one that I love because it's easy to remember. It is not mine, it's Dr. Rangan Chatterjee's, but breathe in for 3, hold for 4, and exhale for 5. And you can do it anywhere. The only thing I would say is that you need to kind of turn your computer off when you're doing something like that. But I know CEOs that do it in the toilet. They've come back and said, I've done it, my conscious breathing in the toilet. It doesn't matter where you do it, as long as you're doing it at a pace that's kind of calm, it's going to make a difference. But other things you can do, other micro changes is, meditation is one, obviously, having a walk, but not just these meditative processes, but like listening to your favorite song. Plugging in, shut your computer, just listen to that song that reminds you of a time, or that takes you back, or maybe it's your wedding song, or whatever it is. And then I spoke to someone at Reed at one of the companies I work for yesterday, who was dancing, and she was saying, I just got up and I danced for 5 minutes. Great, whatever it is, and you're in the comfort of your own home, so you can do anything right now. Laughing, watching something funny, it is any of those things. So just think about that and see what you can add in. And then we're going to go on to the next slide, and I'm going to talk a little bit about sleep. Okay, as we know, sleep could be your superpower. It's probably one of the most important things, and we mentioned it earlier. It's the single best contributor to good mental health and general wellness. Good sleep can do so many things. We know that it reduces stress, it improves memory and cognitive function, which is always very helpful. It lowers blood pressure. It improves the body's natural defense, which is very important right now. And the list goes on and on and on. But I want to talk to you today about how it can also help you maintain your weight. Did you know, I wonder how many people know about these hunger hormones. Sivan, have you heard of hunger hormones? Okay. Basically, you have these 2 hormones that exist in your body. Say again?
Feel like I've got a lot of them at the moment.
Exactly. Look, we are eating more because we're at home and we're treating ourselves because we can't go out and do all the things that normally fill our bucket, but give us all that joy and happiness. So food does become really kind of important in our days at the moment. Guilty as well of eating more chocolate than normal, for sure. But these 2 hunger hormones are really useful to know that there's basically leptin, which actually decreases your appetite. You naturally produce leptin, and it is a hormone that decreases your appetite. And when you've had a bad night's sleep, what happens is the amount of leptin that's produced goes down. So you have less of the hormone that decreases your appetite. And then there's another hunger hormone called ghrelin. And ghrelin basically increases your appetite. And guess what? When you haven't had enough sleep, ghrelin goes up. So I don't know whether you guys have ever felt like really hungry when you've not had enough sleep. Wake up in the morning, haven't had enough sleep, and you just feel much more hungry than you would normally. Well, that is not that you need more energy. That's ghrelin at play saying you haven't had enough sleep. So it is really important to try and get sleep, because it's going to really help us to maintain our weight. We want to get as much leptin as possible to make sure we're not overeating any more than we already are, given that we're at home a little bit more. So yeah, it's really important. And on to the next slide, which is movement. Now, I don't want to go too much about movement. There's a lot of stuff out there, but obviously we're in lockdown, so this is a real challenge. For some people, it was a real challenge even before lockdown. So be realistic. Use your time wisely. There's loads of apps out there. I always suggest doing a bit of exercise in the morning, even if it's a 5 or 7 minute workout, and then it's just done for the day. But if you can do more, great. It'll be good to, to do a bit more, 20 to 30 minutes, 2 to 3 times a week. It is fantastic. I've got loads of apps, like I said, on my, I've got loads of options of apps on my app. But I don't know whether any of the families out there have seen, I'm sure you have, Joe Wicks is doing P in the morning. I mean, actually a really good kind of HIIT workout. So it's half an hour, it's at 9 o'clock, and it's on his YouTube channel. And then Davina's given away 30 days of her workout. So try and find something that works for you. Anything between 5 and 7 minutes, 30 minutes, 3 times a week is great. But honestly, if you can get out as much as possible, get out on your daily walk and do either a walk or a jog, maybe start jogging if you haven't, or just maybe do a walk for 45 minutes. That will really, really impact your happy hormones. Endorphins get released. You definitely stabilize your mental state if you are doing exercise regularly. And because we're not moving so much, it's even more important at this point. And then just, again, a quick bit about nutrition. These are emotional times. We are eating more. We have got limited access to the food we normally eat. But it's really important to just try and have some sort of, plan around eating. I'm not a big fan of diets. I'm very happy to support anybody who's doing whatever they're doing, fasting or whatever it is. I've got these 4 rules that I stick to, and it's kind of devoid of any diets. And I think it's just a few things that really help to maintain your weight, to keep your digestion optimal. And they are basically 70-30 or 80-20. So my whole ethos about eating is that you don't eat like a saint 100% of the time. It's impossible. You don't want to lose the joy in food. It's reasonable to say that you're going to have treats, a glass of wine, chocolate, whatever it is for you, 20 to 30% of the time, 20 to 30% of your day. And I think you should. And the other 70% should be foods that are nutritionally dense, that have lots of nutrients in it to support all of the functions of your body. You don't just want to be well, in life. You want to be vital. You want to have vitality. So often if you're eating lots of fruit and vegetables, you are getting all the nutrients you need, the synergistic nutrients. So they all work together to create absolute optimal functioning of the main things in your body, like digestion and all the other things I can't think of at the moment. A good way to look at it is to think about eating all of the colours of the rainbow. All of the different colours of the food have a different function. So think about, I've had blueberries, maybe I'll have an orange or butternut squash, get your greens in, just to make sure you're getting all of the different colours, because that means you're getting a good mix of nutrients. Having a green with every meal. I often get people coming back to me going, well, it's impossible for breakfast and things like that. But the thing is, it's really important to try and have it. It's just a really basic rule. Even if you have a cucumber in the morning, or a green apple. I mean, ideally a green smoothie. I don't know, many of you probably do things like that, but it's really important to add that green in. It's got lots of antioxidants. It's, bitter greens are really good for cleaning out the body. And it's that necessary fiber we need, again, to keep that digestion moving, to keep our weight stable. All of those things become optimal when we're adding a bit of fiber, a bit of green. That's my son, so sorry. The third rule is to add a protein to your sugar. I love this rule. It's been a real eye-opener for many people that I've spoken to. So when you're having sugar, what happens to your body is you get a big insulin peak, as most of us know, and then the body tries its best to assimilate the sugar that is in our body. But if it's a big amount of sugar on its own, it finds it really hard. And what tends to happen is whatever is left in the body, whatever the insulin can't mop up, turns straight to fat. So the minute you add a protein, you change the sort of chemical composure of that, and it lowers the glycemic load, and your body is able to use that energy slower. So it is less likely, almost, it never does turn to fat because the chemical structure has changed. So it's really important that if you're going to have your chocolate, to add a few nuts to it. If you're going to have a sweet, make sure it's at the end of a protein-rich meal. And if you're vegetarian or vegan, there's lots of suggestions that I can give you to help you with proteins with that, within, getting all your amino acids in. So yes, that's a really great rule. It's a really great trick. So if you're going to have your chocolate at the end of the day, please just add a couple of nuts. If you're allergic to nuts, let's find something else that's going to work for you. And finally, good old water. Drinking 1 to 2.5 litres of water a day. So many benefits. Again, I've mentioned optimizing digestion, eliminating toxins, sharpen brain function. Dehydration, it can lead to so many problems with thinking, reasoning, decision making. So a great thing to do is to drink 1 to 2.5 litres of water a day. Is there any questions? I was just going to give a couple of things about immune boosting. Did you think people would be interested in what you need to boost your immune system?
I think so right now. I mean, I certainly am, given that I'm trying to fight off the virus. So okay. Definitely. Yeah.
Okay. So immune boosting, it can be really, really helpful at this time. But I just want to warn people to not go overboard. I had a client the other day who was doing green juices and, detox for 3 days. So, please don't do that right now. Unless you're going to be really, really strict about flushing all those toxins out, because if you get too detoxified, basically your toxins live in the fat around your organs and stuff. So if you suddenly do a detox, all these toxins are released into your body, and the idea is you have to drink loads of water to flush them out. So unless you're going to do all of that, then you're left with a concoction of toxins. And so then if you expose yourself to a virus, it's just going to be worse. So please be careful about not detoxing too much. But the things that you really need to look out for are vitamin C, as we all know, which is in citrus fruits, quite a lot in red and green peppers and broccoli. Vitamin A, again, both water-soluble vitamins. There are a lot in seeds and nuts. If you're allergic to seeds and nuts, again, I can offer you some alternatives after. Zinc as well, very important mineral to have. That's in pulses, all your kind of lentils, beans, chickpeas, and also cashews are quite high in zinc as well. And then the fourth thing is your omega-3s, fatty acids, so present in salmon, mackerel, sort of sardines, if you're getting tins stuff. And again, your nuts and seeds, very, very high in omega-3s, fatty acids. And the last thing, a bit less known, is carotenoids. So these are kind of sometimes loosely named as anti-cancer nutrients, but they are things like carrots, apricots are very high in carotenoids, and also kale. And, like I said earlier, just aim to get all the colours of the rainbow, and then you'll be covering yourself, purple fruit, stuff that's very dark in colour, it's very, very high in antioxidants. So think about whether you can get that fresh and or frozen. Frozen is absolutely fine. It really retains 99% of the nutrients that you can get from that. So that's the end of that section. Is there any questions? We've got one more about mental health after.
No, they're quite general. So I'll wait to post those into the end.
Okay.
Oh, I know. In terms of nutrition, someone has asked, how much caffeine is too much?
Well, it's very hard to answer. It depends on your size and weight, but I would generally say no more than 2 to 3 cups. And really your last caffeinated drink should be around 4 o'clock. So you've got 6 clear hours to not have it affect your sleep. And a great trick with caffeine is just add a glass of water. You're going to have coffee or tea, add a glass of water, and then it sort of dilutes the effects of the caffeine, and you have this kind of peak and slump thing going on with caffeine as well. Okay, next slide, please. So And the last section is really about looking at mental health, looking after your mental health, very important at this time. And one of the things that I often talk about is finding your personal norms, finding the things that work for you. So finding your calm, and we've talked about lots of different things today, and some of them are overlapping, but what switches you off? You know, when I describe spirituality in my practice, it's not just about meditation and religious practices. It's anything that allows your brain to switch off from that constant thought or that worry or that anxiety. So I remember one of my clients in Dubai, he was struggling so hard to get out of work and get into bed that the only thing that worked for him was putting on an episode of Friends, because it just got him into the TV and he was watching it. And in fact, that was an improvement from where he was. So that was fine. So what is that thing that allows you to quiet your mind? You know, ask yourself, is it watching telly? Is it listening to music? Is it riding your bike? Is it having a bath? Is it whatever it is? Even if it's TV, it's just to change your state, to take your body down from that high nervous system to a slightly lower nervous system, to really get you ready to sort of either go to bed or just keep your body calm throughout the day. Whatever these things are for you, if anything's coming to your mind now, write them down and just keep them somewhere so that you can, you don't have to look at them all the time, but quite often we forget what calms us down, and it's a really good thing to write down what works for you and gets you to find that genuine place of peace. Swapping hats. I love this. I mean, swapping hats is so important whenever we work anyway. You know, you don't want to come home being an MD of a company or whatever you're doing and start managing your husband or wife or your children. And quite often that happens. It's so difficult to switch off with our 24/7 life as it is, but even worse when you're at home constantly and your home is your work. With families around all the time, it can get quite taxing and emotional to keep swapping and changing, but it is really important to try and find our way at the end of the day, particularly to take off your work hat and put on your partner hat or your mum hat or your friend hat or whoever you normally are when you're not working. Having a separate space really helps. You can shut the door and, leave your space. And I love the fact that this guy walks out of his house in the morning, goes to his gate and comes back. They really help those things. Like I said, someone said, put your shoes on. Maybe you wear more, smarter clothes. That's a really great way to get into the zone. Even for this talk today, I put my heels on, which is so silly because no one's ever going to see them. But mentally for me, it put me in a place of where I normally talk. I stand and normally in heels because I'm quite short. So it's just whatever works for you to get into that zone. The way I talk about it is you want to get out of your head and into your heart, because normally what's happening is you're coming out of work and going to somebody that you love, or if you're going home on to your own space, but going into a place in your heart where you can be at peace and be comfortable and be looking forward to all those homely comforts that you enjoy. So how do you do this? I mean, it's not easy. I really love what I call another 5-minute transition time. So what you do is you actually allocate 5 minutes in your diary at the end of your day, and you do those things that we talked about earlier, which is either, put your music on, listen to I had one of my clients who said he put on all this dance music from his university days and it just took him out of, where he was. It's just about changing states. Some people have like photos of their loved ones and they're just kind of looking at those, listening to music. When you're coming out of work, you can walk, but at home you just have to find a different way of doing that. It could be walking, it could be breathing, it could be all of the things I've talked about. But whatever it is, it's about finding your thing to just get out of your head and into your heart and back into your household. So think about what that could be for you. But do dedicate that 5 minutes time to trying to find out what that is for you. It won't be easy at the beginning, but you'll find your way, and make sure you take that hat off. So the next thing is connection and happiness. Now, it is hard. Somebody who said they were on their own earlier. It is really important that you reach out to not just your family to check they're all okay, but to your friends, to your good friends, the ones that don't take anything from you, that make you feel like you. Get onto those video apps and maybe, sit and chat and have a glass of wine if that's what you do. Don't just use all those communication tools just for work. it isn't ideal. It's not the best thing, you know, ever, but there are very limited things that we can do in this kind of lockdown space. So, you know, even if it feels really weird, give it a go. I've tried it a few times with my family. I had some chats to friends of mine with a glass of wine, and it just creates this kind of non-important sort of hubble. It's not really anything. So it just allows you to sort of switch off, like sitting in a pub. It's really important that you look after you before checking that everybody else is all right. I think that's what we're forgetting to do in our moments of connection. And again, it's happiness. It's about deferring that low mood with all of the methods that I spoke about before. It's easy to fall into responsibility, but making yourself happy, what do you need to do that? If chatting and laughing with your mates or watching your favorite TV show, whatever, if it's a guilty secret, just do it, because it's whatever you need to do to get yourself there. And my final point is about kindness. In all of this, us, you know, receiving support from various people, it's really important we allow ourselves to show kindness. This releases much needed endorphins and keeps us really buoyant. And it might even save a few marriages, actually, because there's an exercise that I want to introduce to you, which is a really great exercise. I actually heard it on the news the other day and I really loved it. It's about raising your awareness to kindness. What you do is every day for the next 5 days, you perform an act of kindness. So it could be making a cup of tea for someone. But then the second day, it has to be something different. And over 5 days, you do a different one every day. It could be to yourself or to your, you know, children, to your partner. But it's really, yeah, it's important also to give and be kind and feel that the benefits of that, because it does make you feel good. So perhaps give that a try as well. And I just want to finish by saying, you know, this started in Wuhan, and there is a sense of normality in Wuhan some 2.5 months later. Remember, we're almost sick of hearing it, but the truth is this too shall pass. And this is a unique time in our history as a nation and indeed in the world, but it's also a unique time in your history. So please take the time to see, what did you value? What do you value? Who were your friends? Who supported you? Who did you want to go to? What are you looking forward to doing after all this is over? And who was your support and who did you support? What did you miss the most and what do you value the most? It's a really great time to reflect, if nothing else. It can surely do no harm to give us a bit of longer term clarity. I can see we're right at 3 o'clock.
Great, thanks so much. I feel like I've learned loads. I love music, so I'm really looking forward to taking my 5-minute break to listen to some drum and bass. So thank you for that. We've got a few general questions. I appreciate some of you are going to have to go, so please don't worry, we are recording this and we will share a copy of the recording, but also send over the key tips if you do need to leave. There's a couple of questions around having now had the opportunity to work from home and having not before, being worried about if you're not constantly able on tech, and if you are taking a break, let's say, someone can't see that you're visibly working, worrying about what that might look like to their bosses and to their colleagues. And do you have any tips on how to manage expectations of what you're going through personally in this time?
So you're saying that even though people are working, it's not really being noted because you're not being seen? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, or there's a fear of if they take a break, or colleagues might say if they think that they're not like chained to their desk all day and they are going away and time to do things for themselves, for example.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing to say about that is that people do tend to feel guilty when they work from home simply because they're at home. It's a really strange feeling because you're at home, you just think, oh, I've got to work harder or more. What I would do is I would think about the amount of times that they get up in their office to get a drink or to get a glass of water, and maybe recreate the hours of work at home when you are normally working. Take a lunch break as normal, take a few minutes break in between, but also really realizing that you do have to do things in your day that are extra when you are at home, and to not really feel guilty about that. I think when I was speaking to a couple of people yesterday, I was doing some coaching for this investment firm, and they were sort of worrying that it wasn't being recognized that they are working really hard, and And then there was a couple of people that also, you know, were feeling a bit guilty. And I think I think you have to just let that go a little bit, really. There's no one looking and there's no one checking in, as long as you're getting your work done and you're delivering and you're checking that everything's okay.
No, I think you're right. Just cracking on and doing the best you can is probably what most employers are expecting right now. So that would also be my advice. I think sort of just to reiterate, we're going to be sharing the details, Tayyaba's details. We're going to be sharing her app and ways of connecting her. She is prepared to offer coaching, so please don't afraid to get in touch with her. She goes into lots of workplaces and makes a real difference. So please do follow up with her. We'll be sharing her contact details after this. And going forward, obviously, we're going to be running these every week. So please feel free to get in touch and let us know about any topics that you'd like us to come up with. We want them to be relevant and real time, and continuing to host them at the same time. Don't hesitate to get in touch. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing all those tips with us. I'm really, really grateful, and we'll send over the top tips and your contact details. And anything else you wanted to finish off with saying?
Yeah, just to say that there's a few people asking about the app. So if you just send me an email to hello@wellnesswithme.co.uk, I'll add you to the app. And yes, I mean, what I do is I work a lot with investment firms and construction companies, and I go in and do workshops. I do a day of coaching or 2 days of coaching within the office to really help people on a one-to-one basis, which has been really useful. And I take that info, those problems, and I feed it onto the app and create groups for people, you know, individual groups for people. So we answer really the problems for that group. So different for analysts to partners, for example, and we put them all into their own groups. And so that is what I do. And yeah, if anybody wants any more information, just drop me a line, email.
Great. Thank you so much. And thanks everybody, and hopefully see some of you at the time next week.